afternoon. Welcome to everybody who realize that no one is coming to save them. That's why you're here at the Common Sense Show. On Common Sense Mondays, Common Sense Show, we talk about money, business, the truth, so that you can get it from a reliable source. I didn't clear my throat because of any other reason other than I need more water than I have right now. But welcome in, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. We talk about things like finances the way that they should have taught you from the very beginning. They, meaning the people who taught you in school. I think that finance should be taught in school, of course. And today we're talking about are we headed for a recession? You decide. I hear so much information, so much conflicting information. And I think that part of the thing that makes people nervous is the fact that, social media, there's so much access to information that you didn't used to have access to before that you have access to now, that people get freaked out, man. They absolutely get freaked out over the things that they read, see, and hear, which, fair enough. For sure. My office is a mess today. Do you see this? All this stuff? My office is a mess because I just did a conversion from freshwater fish tank to a saltwater fish tank. And my tank right now is cycling. So before you put your fish in, your tank has to cycle. And the reason why is because usually if you do a conversion, the bacteria, some of the stuff that you put in the water, there are these spikes of ammonia and nitrates in the water. And then like when you first set up the tank, and then those spikes of ammonia and nitrate go up like really high to a level that they would kill fish. And then they usually kind of come back down. So you want your tank to kind of cycle and settle before you kind of start getting fish in. Yeah, I'll give you I have a fish cam. Let me add the fish cam to the show. Hold on. This is the fish cam right here. So I have a light just over the fish cam. I have all this crap in my office right now, but that should be gone, sooner rather than later. But in about a week or so, maybe a few days, you'll start seeing fish floating in the air. I got some other stuff to build. I'm going to build some nice, like these are reef rocks right here. I'm going to build some nice kind of like plateaus in there. You'll see the fish swimming, et cetera, et cetera. Some people said that the fish were distracting when I had them on live streams before, but I think that for you, hopefully you find them as relaxing as I do when I'm talking, but so thank you for joining today. The question of whether or not there's a recession coming is a big one. And there's so much data out there with different viewpoints. And so what I decided to do is, instead of telling you that there's a recession coming, or instead of telling you that there's not a recession coming, I'm asking a question. Are we headed for a recession? And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make a case for both. I'm going to make a case for a recession coming. I'm going to make a case against the recession coming. And then I'm going to tell you why, either way, like what this means for your job. And then we're going to dig a little bit deeper into, how we can kind of do like 4 moves regardless of if the verdict is that a recession coming is or not. But like, as we go, don't feel free to chat and let me know. Do you feel like yourself that there is a recession looming? Like, do you feel it in your bones? Do you feel like things are getting worse? The economy is slowing to the point where you need to be concerned. Let me just put up the Monday, Common Sense Monday screen here. It's always a good time to talk about a recession before it actually hits. But it's important for us to be able to discuss this openly. I wonder if I was doing lives on Thursday afternoons at 1, that was like my biggest audience. I think. And then there's a lot of people in the replay. If you're a replay crew, shout it out in the chat, and not in the chat, but in the comment section. If you're watching this on replay, just drop a comment, say replay crew, and tell me whether or not you think a recession is coming, yes or no. And then I want you to justify your answer. So on this channel, we try to justify our answer. Don't just say yes, don't just say no, but tell me why you think that is the case. So let's get started with kind of the justification for a recession and what warning signs are coming up so that we can talk about that. So the February jobs report. All right. Job growth turned negative in February. So there were 92,000 jobs fewer versus the 59,000 jobs that they thought would be added in February. So in the last 5 of the last 9 months, job growth has been negative. So the majority of the last 9 months have been negative for job growth. Once 2025, the revisions for the job growth actually happen, it's projected to show about 911,000 fewer jobs than was originally reported. And of course, job growth is one of those signals that everyone pays attention to and that they should pay attention to, because that tells you whether or not businesses are doing their thing. Are they hiring? Are they not hiring? You know, what's going on with that? So that is something that is a critical aspect of trying to figure out if a recession is coming. Let's talk about another major, of course, indicator of recession is GDP growth, right? Because 2 consecutive quarters of GDP decline, they say, is a recession, right? So in 2020, Q4 of 2025, the GDP was at 0.7% annualized. And Deloitte, the consulting firm who lost, I think, billions of dollars in Doge contract cuts, projected a full year of 2026 at 1.9% front loaded. That means that the second half of 2026 could see slow growth. And remember that the GDP doesn't have to go negative, meaning like the whole gross domestic product of the US doesn't have to go negative for workers to be hurt by the fact that the recession isn't growing. Part of that slow growth could actually mean like frozen hiring, where people are trying to figure out whether or not they want to hire companies or not. And if they project that their expenses are going to increase, or if there's not going to be much consumer growth and consumer spending, they may put a freeze on hiring. So while that may not necessarily be people getting laid off, it might just be people not being brought in, which is, you know, that's the issue as well. Newsweek had an article about 5 signs of an impending U.S. recession. And it might give me the you got to pay for this article thing. So let's take a look at that briefly. You know, Newsweek is one of those articles, like one of those media companies where you can you can get the articles for like a month for free, and then you got to pay after like a couple of months. Let me share my screen. My computer's been acting like ridiculously slow, and it's pretty annoying that this thing is acting like a bum and buffering. But it's all good. We'll work it out. Am I freezing? Hold on. I think it's when I run Claude, to be honest with you. I think Claude is causing my computer to freeze. I think there we are. Okay. Is that better? I think that's better. All right. So here we are. Oh, wait a second. Five warning signs of an impending recession. The first one is job growth has turned negative. Okay. And we just talked about that and how job growth has turned negative to a certain degree. The second sign is consumer spending. People tend to spend less, right? It seems obvious that people spend less during the recession, but it's kind of what happens. Says consumer spending is estimated to account for about 2/3 of America's GDP. So when consumers start spending less money, then GDP, it has a big effect. If it's 2/3 of the American economy, then when consumer spending stops or goes down, flat lines or whatever, there's no growth there, then it has an effect on the larger overall economy. It says Morgan Stanley expects this year's outsized tax refunds to prop up household finances and spending in the short term. But this was according to an analysis published prior to February 28th, Israel strikes on Iran. Financial pressures are only expected to compound as the conflict drives up oil prices, and with them, both pump cost and prices for staple goods. So let's talk about prices for gas, right? Because I just went to the gas pump yesterday, day before, whatever, and it was $5.31, which I've never seen a gallon for premium gas and I live in Massachusetts, right? Boston area. So $5.31 a gallon. It cost me like $90 to fill up. I just have an SUV, like $90 to fill up my tank. Isn't that crazy? I just did a video on gas prices probably like 3 days ago. So take a look at the content with gas prices. There's a gas station in California where the gas just went up to like $8 a gallon. Nuts. It's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. And I'm not sure exactly why it's like that, other than the indicators that we're talking about here. Let's continue. The housing market, it says that in line with trends observed across 2025, the U.S. finds itself in the midst of a severe affordability crisis in housing, pushing down sales and resulting in sellers now outnumbering buyers at rates not witnessed since the financial crisis. This could be a huge problem. Here's why. The sellers sell their homes for various reasons. Some people sell their homes because they're ready to retire, move somewhere else. Some people sell their homes because they're ready to upgrade to something bigger because their family is growing, or downgrade to something smaller because their family is shrinking. But the reality is that some people sell their homes because they have to financially to pay for something else. It could be medical treatment. It could be life. It could be to try to sell their home before the bank forecloses on it, right? If they missed a payment or two, or their income has changed. There's a million different reasons why people sell their homes. And one of those bigger reasons is because they have to sell their home, right? Like they can't afford it anymore. And so when sellers, when the market flips and becomes a buyer's market and there's a lot of supply, or more sellers on the market than there are buyers, then the good news for buyers is that prices tend to come down, of course, because that's basic supply and demand. But also what happens is the people who are trying to sell their house end up having to sell their house for less money and having to wait. So like the listing time goes up. So if you're in a time crunch to sell your house and there's a bunch more houses on the market, then the time to sold from a real estate perspective is going to go up. I need to just move my camera. It's driving me nuts. Then the time to sold is going to go up, like way up. So Whereas 3, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe, when houses were getting a million different offers off the market in a weekend, now what you might start seeing is homes staying on the market for longer and longer and longer and longer periods of time, right? Where they are just not kind of getting sold. And I've seen this trend in the market where people's homes are not selling, and it's really kind of getting out of hand with some people. And so we'll see what happens here. I mean, this started happening in 2008, and people were kind of freaking out, and there end up being, some other stuff, just like that. So, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but people are not happy right now. Sellers are not happy. This is not a seller's market. That's 100% sure. True right now. And we can take a look at some of these stories. Hold on a second. There's a video here. One second. Here, let's take a look. Let's share. Let me share the screen here.
Home right now and you're wondering why older homeowners aren't selling or cutting price, maybe this will help it make more sense. It's easy to think it's just about interest rates because that's what the news is telling us, or that sellers are just being stubborn because they want to make the most money they can. But for long-term homeowners, that's usually not the reason at all. Many of these folks have lived in their homes for 20, 30, even 40 years. They've raised families there. They've paid it down slowly. Maybe a while back, they locked in a very low interest rate. There is some truth to that. But selling isn't just a math problem. When they sell, they don't just lose their house. They lose a payment they can live with. They lose a neighborhood they already know. They lose a routine they've had for decades, and the next move feels really uncertain. So that's why price reductions don't come very fast. It's not always about chasing the market. It's about needing the next step to feel clear and safe. When buyers understand this, negotiations change quite a bit. Patience matters. Timing matters a lot, and respect goes a long way. If you're buying right now, this context helps.
So I think that's a good call out, for buyers, especially if you are looking to buy right now. I mean, I think that this is very, very true. Selling homes for people is an emotional thing. People don't like to sell their home because they have to become, they have to get somewhere else. They have somewhere else to live. And so if you have an emotional attachment to the place that you've called home for like your kids' lives and your lives, you've paid down that mortgage and maybe it's almost done or finished. Yeah. I mean, the economics of you needing to live the rest of your life comes into play for sure. And it behooves everybody to listen to that, right? Like you have to like kind of keep into consideration that the person is going to go from paying, I don't know, whatever they're paying for mortgage to going back into a renter's market that is super high and going back into a buying market, which has changed since the last time they bought a house as well. So there are a lot of economic factors that go into that, as well. So getting back to like are we in a recession? And this is again for you to judge. The next thing is the consumer stress is building. 42% of Americans, according to YouGov, believe a total economic collapse is somewhat or very likely in the next decade. So that doesn't really instill confidence when the person feels like in the next decade there's a total financial collapse that might happen. So like consumer confidence is a big part of GDP, right? It's a big part of people have to spend money for the American economy to work. And so if people are not spending money because they think that there's going to be a total financial meltdown, that's the problem. Of course, you have the conflict in Iran, right? And so there's what's called the Iran shock multiplier. Now, you may not know what Iran oil shock is, but oil shock is basically when there is a target oil price, and because either a conflict or whatever they have, doesn't necessarily have to be a conflict, but that price exceeds the benchmark price for that specific oil. And so Goldman Sachs just raised their recession probability to 30%, talking about the war directly. And they projecting that there's going to be 10,000 jobs lost per month from oil shock alone. So there's that. 10,000 jobs lost because of oil shock alone. So that's the issue. And then poly market, which is like, so poly market is this weird thing that I've seen. So what poly market is they like basically take bets on things like who's going to become the next governor of this state, like politics, stuff like that. But they also like just bet on a whole bunch of other economic indicators, factors, and people actually play these bets. It's so weird to me. But they put the next recession as of today, basically at 36%. So they're saying that there's a 36% chance that there will be a recession that comes up. So, I mean, we'll see. Here's another issue. 90-day mortgage delinquency rates. That's a problem. They've jumped. So 90-day mortgage delinquency rates have jumped from 0.5% in 2021, so 5 years ago, to nearly 3% at the end of 2025. So between 2021 and 2025, 90-day mortgage delinquency rates have increased, which is 6.5 times the conventional rate. And so that's a problem. So when you add it up, so remember, this live stream is about I'm going to give you the case for recession and the case against it. And you're going to tell me what you think. Do you think that there is going to be a recession? So for recession, February jobs report, so it's negative. The GDP is not negative in the sense that it's like it's gone negative and is slowing down, but it is slowing potentially to a stall. The third thing is that there's a little bit of stress with consumers, right? Remember that YouGov poll that said 42% of people believe that there's a total economic collapse happening. I mean, that seems kind of like doomsday stuff, but that's what they're talking about. The third thing is the Iran oil shock multiplier, right? The fourth thing. I have four fingers up. I said third thing. I'm an idiot for that. Where's my "you're an idiot" video? That's me. When I say the third thing, I have it here. Come on, give it to me. It is right here.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
Okay, so the fourth thing, is the Iran oil shock multiplier, right? So prices of oil have gone up exponentially. And then the fourth thing is that their 90-day mortgage delinquency rates have jumped up 6.5% in the last 4 years. So let me ask you this question. If you were to add those 5 things up, do you think that there is a recession coming? So we have to put on our predictive hats, like looking out to 2026 and beyond. Do those things signal recession to you, or do they just signal slower economy, right? So if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and put your comments in the chat, your predictions in the chat for that. Or do you think it's something else? So now I'm going to give you the case against a recession. Okay. Now this is the case why a recession may not happen, and the economy is essentially bending but not breaking, right? So let me give you some of these indicators here. So the first thing is that the Fed predicts a 2.3 to 2.4% GDP growth for 2026. So remember that growth that I told you about, where Deloitte had predicted that the GDP would be at like 1.9. Well, the Fed is contradicting that, and they're saying that they're revising that upward from 1.9 to 2.3 to 2.4. And there is the NAB consensus that there's going to be positive GDP and not negative GDP. So there's that. So there's factor one there. And I have 6 factors for against a recession. The second factor is that the labor market is cooling and not cracking. So Ernst & Young, their chief economist, Gregory Dacko, said that companies are freezing hiring, not mass firing. Well, this kind of flies in the face of some of the layoffs that we saw, right? Like we saw a lot of layoffs in tech, like a lot. Now, some of that could just be due to industry shift and the tech industry going towards more AI-centric models of working and like a fundamental long-term shift in tech, right? And so that could be a reason why we're seeing mass layoffs in tech. And a lot of people have talked about that. Remember, Jack Dorsey talked about that when he laid off about half his staff at Block since he did that on February 24th. So February 24th, he laid off more than half his staff, and that was a bit of an issue there. So the third reason is consumers are still spending. I don't know what's going on with my camera. I think my camera is glitching. This is so weird. Camera glitch. It's killing me. I think tech my live stream stuff is like attacking me today. I have no idea why my live stream stuff is attacking me, but it is cranky for whatever reason. And it is kind of like bucking the trend. Okay, consumers are still spending. Tax refunds are running 10% more than above last year. So, I mean, that's great. I mean, I pay taxes every year pretty much. So I don't really get a tax refund, and I haven't in a long time. But we do have something this year that we didn't have last year with the big, beautiful bill that they passed. Personal income tax cuts deliver a spending bump. And high-income consumers who drive a disproportionate amount of the share of the GDP are holding firm. So people are getting tax refunds about 10% above where they had them last year. And high-income consumers are still spending money. So you can always count on, the spenders to continue to spend. The question is, how much are they going to spend, right? Like not if they're going to spend, but how much they're going to spend. So there's that. So that is the third reason. The fourth reason, the case why a recession won't happen, is according to the New York Fed, who said that according to their recession model, there's an 81.3% of no recession by January 2027. As of February, their model does not predict a recession. And so they cited fiscal stimulus tailwinds as the reason why there won't be a recession. Now, are the tailwinds of fiscal stimulus, like, do you feel like you're buying more or less? Are you seeing some macro change in how people are spending, generally speaking? When we say macro, like you're looking across the entire country to see kind of like what people are spending on and if they're spending. And I don't know anybody who's made any large investments, but I also don't know anybody who, other than like personal bills, like groceries, gas, stuff like that. Like, I don't really know anybody who is not spending normally to like how they normally would. I don't hear of anybody like cutting expenses, but you may. I'm not exactly sure. So that is that's something that I think is important, right? Because when you start seeing people spending less and saving more and trying to control their spending, that's like a clear sign of, what's to come, right? Like what people are thinking about what's going to happen in the future, especially when it comes to, okay, here is where I am seeing people not spend on construction. So I have a construction business and I am seeing people delay projects unless they are necessary. Like we're just coming out of the winter, and there's like water damage from the winter. So I'm seeing people like take care of stuff that requires either insurance or affects their ability to enjoy their comfort of their living situation. But I'm not seeing people engage in like the kind of like the pet projects, interior painting, and doing stuff that they were doing like last year, right? So I think that's important. Another reason, point number 5, why the recession indicator, why a recession may not happen, is because of the SAM rule has not been triggered, which a lot of people consider this the most reliable recession indicator. Now, the SAM rule was named after the economist Claudia Sam, who proposed in 2019 while she worked at the Federal Reserve. And what it is, this is a real-time heuristic-based U.S. employment rate measure, and it signals that a recession has likely begun when a couple things happen. When the 3-month moving average of the national employment rate rises by 0.5 percentage point or more above its lowest point over the prior 12 months. I'm not going to get into the mathematical formula behind it, but as of right now, that has not been triggered. So as of right now, the indicator stands at approximately 0.27 to 0.30, but the threshold is 0.5. So it's not really near where it would need to be in order for that rule to be triggered, and then therefore, of course, it being like a countdown clock to recession. And then here's another final reason. The 6th reason, I'm going to do it right this time, 6, is that the balance sheets are stronger than 2008. Over 81% of homeowners, which is a big number, have locked in fixed rates below 6%. And that is pretty good. Also, the banks are way better capitalized, and AI investment from businesses is kind of stabilizing businesses. They're able to actually deliver on what they do without having like the workforce that costs them a lot of money. Therefore, it becomes dangerous because of overspending. So balance sheets in people's homes and businesses are stronger than before. So this may be what's called, it may be like a tired economy, but it's certainly not a broken one. So those are the 6 reasons why a recession may not happen. So there's 5 reasons why a recession could happen. And I've just given you 6 reasons why a recession may not happen. But I want to do something that most people don't do, because usually like you go on CNBC or CNN or whatever, Fox or whatever, Fox Business, like, and you take a look at and listen to all these recession indicators and people in business talking about recessions. But what they don't do is they don't speak from like the worker's lens, like what either scenario, either for a recession or against a recession, what it means for you specifically. And I want to address that because that is something obviously that Common Sense Show is all about. It's about business. It's about personal finance. It's about your own personal economy. I want to make sure that, you think about everything across the board if you're a business owner, if you're not. So regardless of what side you're on when it comes to the recession conversation, and don't forget to put your prediction in the comment section. So based off of what I've given you for a recession and against a recession, put your comment in the comment section. Let me know whether or not you think it's going to happen. So one thing, if you're a worker, to think about is that just because you're employed, it does not mean that you're secure. Job openings to unemployment that ratio has dropped to nearly about 1 point. It was 2.0 and now it's about 1.0 after the pandemic. And the quit rates are below pre-pandemic COVID levels. So what that means is that workers right now are not really feeling confident enough to leave their job. You know how the whole, you you go get a job and you're like, I don't care what my boss says, there's always going to be a job available. I'm out of here. Like, I ain't working for you no more. You know, you're making me angry. I'm gonna go get another job. Yeah, that's not happening. People are staying put. People are not leaving their job, which is probably good, because we talked about in the video I did about jobs the other day how hard it is to actually get a job at the moment. Young workers and job seekers are already in a recession, so that's interesting. So if you're watching this and you're young, and young is, we're talking 16 to 24, the unemployment rate for you is about 10%, and it's going up. And I wonder if that's because like younger kids are more, and this is my daughter's age range, right? But I wonder if younger kids are more likely to quit their job more haphazardly and without like full thought about it than like someone like you or me, who is in our, I'm saying you or me, like we're the same age. You might be, I don't know. Are you? I'm 43. So are you the same age as me? Maybe. But yeah. I mean, I feel like whenever I get a resume of someone who's between, let's say 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, someone who's like fresh out of school, they've only worked at places for like a year or 6 months. And they do these interviews and they haven't put in like time at jobs in order to actually build up any sort of skill. So not only are they not building skills because they're always jumping around, but they're also like just jumping from job to job because they're like, hey, like I'm out of here. You know, like it's kind of crazy how many people I see with like a year or less at each job now on their resume. So the news says that the share of unemployed, out of work workers between the ages of 16 and 24 have on average been out for 6+ months, which is like a 2009 record. That's a long time to be out of work. Do you know how long does unemployment last? I'm pretty sure it doesn't last for like years, right? I don't think I've ever been on unemployment. Maybe once in my life. Let me check. I'm gonna look this up right now. Should we check AI? Let's check AI together. I'm gonna share my screen. And I'm just gonna punch it in. Let's see. All right, here we go. Can you see? Oh man, that's so small. Better. Okay. On average, how long does, let's say, do states provide unemployment to workers? I put it in wrong. It says in the United States, unemployment insurance benefits are administered by individual states, plus the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, with no uniform federal mandate for duration. Most states provide a maximum of 26 weeks, about 6 months of regular state-funded benefits for eligible workers who lose their job through no fault of their own. Most common is 26 weeks, the majority of states longer than 26 weeks. A few states, such as Massachusetts, I told you I was from Boston, right? This is why my taxes are so high here. Yes. Up to 30 weeks, sometimes adjusted based on local unemployment rates. For Montana, up to 28 weeks in some reports, shorter than 26 weeks. About 13 to 16 states currently offer reduced maximums, often 12 to 20 weeks. Example includes Arkansas, Florida, North Carolina. Sometimes others like Louisiana, Tennessee, blah, blah, blah. So you get the point. The point is that you get, let's say like the max is like 6 months, right? Which seems like to be the consensus here with social media. If the max is 6 months and the unemployment rate for workers like between 16 and 24, like if one of their biggest issues is that they're unemployed and they're out of work for 6 months, they're bumping up against the ceiling of how long the state will provide unemployment for. Yeah, that's an issue. So if you're a worker, if you're a worker between the age of 16 and 24, you're probably likely in a recession already. So how do you get out of that? I think the best thing to do if you're 16 to 24 and you're trying to get out of that is you have to be like the anti 16 to 24 year old. When you go to talk to someone who's trying to give you a job, you have to come off as so mature and put together. I'm not saying to be someone different. That's something completely entirely different. I'm saying that you come off like mature, like a person can't even tell that you're 24 years old, fresh out of school, or 2 years out of school, 3 years out of school. You have to come off as like just someone who thinks through things, not impulsive, willing to put the work in, grind, kind of like 90s values, right? I'm talking Fridays, like Independence Day, Fresh Prince, Martin, 90s values, right? Like straight up, I'm willing to work, grind, and do whatever I got to do to make it work, right? Like that's what you got to come with. Otherwise, people are going to just see you as like a liability, possibly, and that you might not be here in 6 months because you want the latest and greatest opportunity. And if a company believes that there's a recession coming, do you think that they're going to hire anybody who's not loyal to them or who they perceive is going to leave? So you may be loyal, but the company's perception may be that you're not going to be around and available for them long term. All they need is the perception. And that's a big difference. Another thing that you want to keep your eye on from the workers' lens is AI layoffs. So there's been about 51,000 workers who got laid off, right? Due to AI related job cuts in 2026 alone. So this is from January to like 2 days ago, Friday, whatever, however many days ago that was. There's been over 51,000 workers that got laid off due to AI. So normally this happens during expansion cycles, right? Because businesses want to do more business. Therefore, they cut the labor rate to try to do more business more efficiently, right? So like as a signal, you should be thinking about that. You should be asking yourself this question. Is your job repeatable? Can it be automated? You have to look at don't look at like, sometimes people look at like Meta, Twitter, Google, and they see all these layoffs, right? But you have no idea who the people are that got laid off, right? You have to really think about this. If you're starting to see like a picture of people in your industry getting laid off because you're tapped into the industry, that's one thing, but I would more think about your role. Be more role oriented. Is your role something that can be automated? And if it is, start learning some skills. Okay. And if you're a worker, think about how. So, okay. So there's kind of indicators right now that upper income households that have a little bit more money, spending is stable, meaning that they're spending at the same clip as they have in the last few years. And in lower income and middle income, like mid to lower middle income households, that delinquencies are rising, the savings is getting depleted, and they are at risk at layoff, right? So this is a problem because a lot of people don't have a cushion. If you're in a job that could or may not be affected by AI, it doesn't really matter because what you do doesn't matter as much as how you position yourself. You should be thinking about building a cushion for yourself long term so that you're okay, right? And it's going to be critical that you think about how you prepare yourself for the future. I've said this over and over again, that you should be thinking about your household finances and budget as your own economy, as your own ecosystem. And you are the Treasury Secretary, president of your own economy and your own household. How can you make the most amount of money in the least amount of time and have the most safeguards put in place and the most buffers, right? And so this is what people who have bigger incomes think about a lot of the times. And I get it. Like, a lot of people don't want to have two jobs, or like a job and a side hustle, like the 5 to 9. There's a whole 5 to 9 movement on TikTok. All you gotta do is go to TikTok. Not that TikTok is like the oracle of the truth sayer, but what it is it's representative, generally speaking, of how people in their like 20s and 30s are thinking about the world. It's been kind of co-opted by people in their 20s, 30s. There's even people in their 40s and older on there, of course. But I mean, people like to spend money on their chai and mocha lattes. Why not invest in like whatever your favorite drink is that you enjoy every single day? Get your own machine for the house, right? Or plan for it. Like, build yourself in a buffer, please. And thank you. So I have regardless of what happens in the economy, I have 4 moves that I want you to do. Okay. 4 moves I want you to undertake. And I want you to be clear about kind of how you like engage in these moves. The first move is I want you to audit your job security honestly. Right? So ask yourself 4 questions. Is my company's revenue growing or shrinking? Pay attention to that. Is my industry tariff exposed or customer dependent? Like, is your industry like essentially foundationally tethered to how people spend their money? The third thing is, have there been hiring freezes, budget cuts, or org changes in the last 90 days? The fourth thing is, could my role be eliminated or consolidated without the company missing a beat? Like, are you expendable, right? That's step 1 in trying to figure out what move you need to make. Step 2, you need to know your recession runaway number, right? Like, how much runway do you have in your savings or your investments to cover essential expenses if you get laid off or if something happens to you? Essentially, you have to, if you had to only pay the essential expenses, essential meaning your rent, mortgage, utility, food, insurance, debts, how much money do you have to actually be able to satisfy those things? And for how long can you do it? If that number is below like 3 months, then building that, that recession runway number should be your number 1 focus, right? Like, it should be your kind of go-to, like what you are actively trying to build. Step number 3, make yourself hard to cut at work and build a second income. So, it's funny because I did a story on a video on it was layoffs, and this guy in the comment section was saying that he got laid off from his job, but he had already built up a second income that he thought would keep his family afloat, right? And I thought that's freaking brilliant, right? Like, he knew kind of where it could go and he steered his ship around it, right? He already was prepared for it. And I don't know, what his hours are at his second job, but I do know that he built a second income just in case the first income were to go kaput. And I don't know if he did that because he got a sense, but try to be the person who kind of thinks ahead, right? And then at your job, make yourself valuable, right? Like, try to be the person who solves problems, who manages clients' relationships. And yeah, I do know that there's people who did all that stuff and they still got laid off, but make it hard for a person to cut you at work because you are so valuable. Number 4, engage in your network. Okay. I know that most people hate LinkedIn, hate social media, whatever the case is, but after you get laid off, it's hard to tap your network for like work or projects or whatever the case is, things that can make you money. You need to build your network before anything were to happen. Keep your network tight. Stay in touch with people. Remember that person you said you would call back that you didn't call back about like a job, lunch, breakfast, whatever, dinner, a coffee. The person you used to work with, the person who moved on and said, hey, I would love to have you here, but you never said anything. Think about engaging your network into like something a little different. Like try to stay in touch, try to be in contact, try to do something for someone. Honestly, the best way to get people in your network to do something for you is to do something for them first, right? Make the first leap. Reconnect with managers or colleagues that may have gone on to somewhere else. Let people know that you're open to conversations in an environment where people aren't necessarily getting laid off or fired. Like it's you want to just be available so that people know that you are, that you might consider something different if something changes in the future. So I have some questions that came in. I have 2 questions that came in that I wanted to share. The first is like, how do I know if my job is actually safe? I'm going to repeat something I said earlier. How do you know if your job is actually safe? Well, the first way is your company's revenue growing or contracting? Is your role replaceable? That's the second thing. And is your company like tariff or consumer sensitive exposed? Is what you have, the pricing, is the price structure of what you charge to your consumer, how elastic is it? Meaning like what ability do you have to adjust the price with consumer demand? Like for instance, if you work for a fuel company, even if the price of gas goes up, you're still likely going to have a job because people need to put gas in their car, right? Like it's not that complicated. You have to know, like based off the company that you're in, how much do people need the services of the business that you're in? The other question I got is someone said, what jobs are actually safe right now? I have these written down here. So here's what I was thinking about when I was wanting to answer this question. So I wanted to think about like industries, like I just talked about, and like who might have more longevity than others, right? So healthcare, of course, is structurally insulated across the board, right? So healthcare, generally speaking, people are always going to get sick and need treatment. Accidents are going to happen. People are going to go into the hospital, right? So that's kind of like structurally insulated. It's nothing really that's going to happen. In fact, they have a workforce shortage and there's an aging population of boomers. And that is something that is not going to go away anytime soon. So anything in healthcare management, I think you have a pretty good shot of having longevity in that field. The second thing is skilled trades. Electricians, plumbers, HVAC, utility workers, contractors, painters, et cetera, et cetera. The things that cannot be offshored or automated, the things that are essential, like those trades, if a toilet breaks, there's a leak in your house, the mold remediation, gutter jams, like we had during the winter, but I mean the gutter dams during the winter that were like leaking inside, and you need to replace a roof or whatever. Those things aren't going anywhere, and they can't be automated to like AI systems. Software can't do that. And maybe eventually there will be an opportunity for workers, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I think AI data security, and for those who have those skills, I think the government's going to be hiring for data security and AI for a long time. So I don't think those those roles are going anywhere. So learning cybersecurity, data security, AI, like you have a good opportunity to have a very long career, because that stuff is only going to need more and more protection as the threats get more and more sophisticated. So become an expert in cybersecurity with a specialization in AI, because we're going to need it. Local government, public safety, right? There are more law enforcement jobs across the country than there ever have been before. People aren't signing up. But yet those are the jobs with pensions. Yes, they're dangerous, of course. I mean, the obvious stuff aside, the reality is that those jobs aren't going anywhere. They have pensions. With overtime, you can make a decent amount of money, especially if you're in a big city, compared to like being out to like somewhere like in the country. And the quality of life outside of the risk of the job is actually not bad. Like I know that in Boston, talk about civil service, in the fire department, they make. So let's go talk about the schedule first. In Boston, I think Boston firefighters, they have 2 24-hour days that they work that are on, and then they're off for 5 days. Work 2 24-hour days, off for 5 days. That's crazy. So, like, yeah, you'll find a lot of people like in the firehouse that are like plumbers and electricians that have other forms of income because they have so much time outside of their firefighter duties. And yeah, it's a job where you can sleep on the job until there's an emergency. Yeah, of course you have to get up, but like you can sleep at night. You have to get up and respond to emergencies, but like, there's time there, right? There's time. So think about that. You want to try to like gravitate towards the common threads, like essential, hard to replace jobs, domestically delivered jobs. And if you're vulnerable in your field, try to pivot to something way more useful, or transfer skills to something else, like where you are, right? Like try to transfer those skills into something that may be a little bit more adept to the to where we actually are this week, where we are in the stream of time. So what do we have going on this week on the Common Sense Show? I have a couple videos coming out this week. I still actually have to film them. And one is going to be out on Wednesday, and the other one should be out Friday. So typically my posting days are Wednesday and Friday, and I do a live on Monday. And I am appreciative of all of those of you who are watching. I'd love for you to join and subscribe as a member. So I'm not looking for you to, to do anything outlandish, but if you become a member of the channel, you get things like behind the scenes, members only lives where we can chat, talk about your own personal economics. We can talk about what's coming up on the show. We do members only polls, content, and looking forward to building the Common Sense community, the Common Sense crew, the real ones that I call them, because again, in a world where you know that no one's coming to save you, you need to have a plan. You need to be focused on how to build, for the future. So I'm looking forward to building this community of the Common Sense crew, the real ones. And I appreciate you kind of joining us live today. I will be back live again, one-on-one, 1-to-1 for you next Monday in the afternoon. And hopefully I have an update on my fish tank. So right now, let me show you something. It's empty. There we go. Okay. You can see me now. Okay. So right now my fish tank is empty, right? Because the water's still cycling, like I mentioned earlier. This right here and that right there, that's a coral reef. There's nothing in the tank right now, but I am going to, so my first 2 acquisitions are going to be clownfish, right? I have these, they're like designer clownfish I got from a friend of mine who's breaking down his salt tank. And these clownfish are beautiful. They're like spotted, right? You probably remember clownfish from the movie, what is it called? Finding Nemo, right? With your orange and white striped. Those are clownfish, but these are like beautiful, like kind of white and black spotted clownfish. Like, so I'm getting those. I'm also getting, this is also going to be a coral tank, like a reef tank. So there will be coral in here. And coral is live. So like it like opens and contracts with the light, which is pretty cool. And then I have like, I'll have some like, they call them bottom feeders. There's like these little like snails and shrimp and things that kind of gray, like, they kind of like groom the sand, right? And they have this like tank cleaning effect, and they like emit waste, and that kind of helps with the bio waste and everything else that like everyone wants to get rid of. And the tank is actually beneficial, right? Because it helps to set the condition for the tank. So, the more you know. And of course, this is something I learned as I became more aware of like what it means to actually have a tank and to want your fish and the stuff in your tank to live. I need to shave. So anywho, that's kind of like what the deal is with that. And I'll keep you up to date with that. This is I told you like my thing is so messy, but this right here, this is Live Rock. Let me show you. This is a I'm gonna be putting this in the tank. I have to let the camera focus on this. So I'm thinking about putting this in there at the bottom. Yeah. So we'll see. Decorating a tank is actually hard work. I think I'm going to have to sketch out what I want to see. My kids love it. Anyways, I appreciate you tuning in today to the show. Look forward to seeing you again live next Monday where we address another concern. I'm going to put a poll up early this time. I'm going to put a poll up in the community section. So if you go to the comments channel, to the community section, I want you to vote. What should I talk about next Monday? I'm going to put 3 subjects up there. It will not be the recession again. And I'm actually going to be adding more stuff to the live, like, for instance, videos. I don't have videos today for live, but I should. I should have videos that represent some of the stuff that we're talking about, just so we're all on the same page. But I got to do a better job preparing for some of these lives like I do for the videos. So I look forward to having you come back. I thank you so much for watching and being subscribed. Don't forget to like this video so that YouTube can send you more Common Sense Show content as I try to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so that you can continue to educate yourself. It's about self-education. That's how you learn. Even people who go to school and get these degrees, they don't get the degree. They learn more on their own than they learn in school. So your biggest education platform is going to be how much you actually learn outside of school or work or whatever, investing in the time for yourself. So thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate you all very, very much. Thank you for being subscribed, and I will see you on the next one. Until next time, I am Micah, and I am out of here. Peace.